us at our CW Logitech with MS Teams Better Together webinar. We're really excited to have you today, and we're really excited to dive deeper into Logitech's video collaboration solution and how Logitech and MS Teams work together to provide that seamless end-to-end solution to you. So without further ado, I will pass over to Deb. I don't want to take too much of your time, but Deb will do a quick intro of our awesome team, and then we will get started. So Deb, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Logitech and CDW Canada's virtual event today, focused on Logitech video collaboration and Microsoft Teams. Before we kick off today's session, just a brief intro of who we are. So my name is Deborah DeCuto, and I manage the Team Workspace Solutions and Services business here at Logitech Canada. And joining me is Jay Christian Galicia, our Senior Sales Engineer here at Logitech. Together, we support CDW Canada. Also joining us from CDW Canada is Sherman Wu, Senior Field Solution Architect for Modern Workspace Collaboration for Microsoft. And lastly, we have Ashley Ng, our resident Logitech Partner Specialist at CDW. Together, this entire team is here to help your organization with an enterprise-grade ecosystem of products, software, and services to enable a better employee experience and help unlock productivity and collaboration through our personal workspace and team workspace solutions. So feel free to add any questions into the chat. We'll be answering them throughout the session and also some towards the end of the session as well. If you'd like to find out more about what's presented today, please feel free to reach out to your CDW account executive. And one last thing, we're also gifting a pair of Zone True wireless earbuds and a Brio 4K webcam after today's session and announced in a few days. So keep your eyes open for that. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jay.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Deborah. Nice to meet everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. And to the folks that's going to be watching this recording later on, good evening. So everything about Logitech, right? We're here to solve that pain point for all of our customers, whether that's going to be inside that room or even your personal workspaces. As you can see, we have a plethora when it comes to our portfolio, when it comes to being that team certified device. We have your personal devices for those B2B products. We have the Logidock that I'm talking to right now, our best quality 4K cameras with the webcams. But today we're definitely going to touch base more on the video conferencing aspect of it. What goes inside that room and how does that deliver that day-to-day look and feel that we're all using currently right now, right? The Teams client. How do you join those meetings? How easy it is for your end users to adopt and just walk in and just join their Teams meeting from that standpoint. Starting from that foundation, right? Whenever you talk to any of our team members here, we're always going to ask these three questions. This is our underlying questions just to get you the right solution for that right room. We always want to make sure that we have the right camera. And again, at the end of the day, it's still going to give you that look and feel from a Teams room perspective, whether you go towards a Teams on Windows route or Teams on Android route. We want to make sure that you have the right camera, that we're not prescribing the wrong device and making sure that everyone on the far end is being heard and being seen clearly. So from a end user's workflow, we're always going to look at the room dimensions, how many does it sit, and the end user workflow, because at the end of the day, we want to ensure that your end users are just walking in without calling IT and having that meeting being, late to their meeting, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this device is not working for me. So these three questions is really great from us. From that standpoint, obviously, we're talking about mainly Microsoft Teams. We do support other platforms agnostically, but we do support Microsoft and we're certified from our devices end to end. From that, we got you covered not only inside the conference room, but as well outside the conference room as well. So we do have scheduling panels that will accommodate a Teams room perspective and analog whiteboards that we can talk more about later on as well. With that, I will pass it along to Sherman to talk about how we prescribe our devices in those type of rooms.
I better unmute my mic. Thanks, Jay. Yeah, so one of the things that Jay mentioned in the three characteristics that we, when we're talking about meeting room solutions, one of the things is obviously what's your what's your space like? I'll say space instead of room, because yeah, we think about small rooms, medium rooms, large board rooms, conference rooms, even auditoriums, but don't forget about those other spaces that you have. That, you know, those ad hoc meeting spaces that I've seen a lot of open floor plans, for better or for worse. They're right by the kitchen or whatever, but with this back to, you know, in this hybrid work world, as we're coming back into the office. And by the way, let us know in the chat how many of you are in the middle of, or have already you know, well into your back to work hybrid strategy, and what that's like, and what are some of the challenges that you've had and have seen in your space, and what are you doing to solve them. So what this slide's talking about is, yeah, there's a lot of different room types and room sizes, the small rooms, and what considerations you want to take into account. So in this case here, it's you know, one person, the one-on-one chats that you need to do with someone remote, could be office to office scenario, office to home. You might have the huddle spaces where it's a small team. And I used to work with an organization that's exactly what they had. They had these huddle rooms. I can't remember what they called them. It wasn't huddle, but same idea. And you know, this was mid 2010s, and so it wasn't exactly the great solution. We had to bring in our laptops, we had to plug it in, do we have the right cable, wrong HDMI cable, sound didn't work, and you spend time wasted working on that. So with these modern solutions that Logitech has, we can set up a room that's all nice and neat, clean, minimal cables, and you walk in, and sometimes you don't even need to plug in a cable. You have the option to, but ideally you walk in, you hit a button. So there's a little black device on some of these tables here, which is a touch panel. And it's a common characteristic to a lot of these modern rooms. There's a panel that controls the camera, there's a display, and you walk in, and you know, the meeting, because you booked the room, the meeting's already there, and you hit a one button and everything starts. No need for that quick reference guide. I know we've all been there, you know, dial these 10 digits, you know, sacrifice your sandwich, and then you'll get your mic working, right? That type of thing. That's all gone. If you are considering or working towards reconfiguring your office space, and we're doing that at CDW too, as we're kind of returning back to work in our various branch locations, you know, what are we doing to help people when they come back, have a better experience? Because now it's all about, you may have, if you have a meeting with 10 people, you don't know how many people are calling in from home versus calling in from the office. It could be anywhere from, you know, pick your numbers there. You could have one person in the office, you could have 8 people in the office, and the rest are remote. Whereas during the pandemic, everyone was remote, so we didn't really have these challenges. Well, now we want to see each other's faces. We want to be back to being in person, and so these are some of the things that you want to take into account. And as you're designing these rooms, you're designing both for in physical on-site, and also for the remote participant. And that's actually one of Microsoft's philosophies, is we're designing these tools. I say we, I don't work for Microsoft. Designing the tools, whether it's the software or the hardware, with the remote worker in mind. And that's first. And then we look at the in-room considerations. So again, this slide is talking about things to consider as you are looking at your small room options in your organizations. And so as you look at that, you kind of go, well, why don't I just stick in my, I don't have a Brio 4K, wink, wink. I don't have a Brio 4K, but if I did, why don't I take that? It's 4K, it's got great resolution. I'm going to stick this little camera inside this. Even if it's a small meeting space, it's going to look off. And I have seen that prior to these meeting bars being around. It just looks off, and it's not the best experience. And again, the meeting camera requires a compute device, so you have to have all that complexity associated with it. And there's IT management, et cetera, et cetera. So with Logitech Rally bars, the first option is, okay, if it's a smallish to medium-sized room, there's a Rally bar Mini, and there's really the 2 different flavors, appliance mode or USB mode. And then again, you can kind of have it without the touch panel, so that you can have it in BYOD mode. I'll touch back on that in a second. The thing, when I first heard about the Rally bar Mini, don't let the name mini fool you. And it's hard to get a sense of the scale. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's 28 inches wide. So take out your measuring tape and go, holy smokes, that's big. That's bigger than my home theater center speaker, which isn't that big. And so the sound coming out of it is great. It's got the big mic and it follows you around. Why I bring that up is because it's great for the smaller rooms, but it's good all the way up to kind of the medium-sized rooms. And there's some slides later that talk about what a medium-sized room is. So it's pretty diverse in its capabilities. And so I'm just saying, don't let the name mini fool you. I'll come back to the BYOD in a second. Here's some components. This is going to be a common slide later on as well, so I'll be quick about this one. What are the things that we might see in a meeting room, in this case small, but again, you change the Rally Bar Mini to Rally Bar Full, and you kind of have the medium-sized one. So what are some components here? We have the meeting bar, of course, which contains your camera, your speaker, your microphone pickup. You have, in this case, 2 displays. You have a whiteboard, the dry eraser board that many offices still have, many meeting rooms still have. Sorry, my cat's about to attack me. And what, if you have 5 people in the meeting room in that conference call and they're about to start marking things up on the dry eraser board, well, how are you going to showcase that to the people on the other end? It's not shown on here or highlighted, but there is a Logitech Scribe, which is a camera that focuses on the whiteboard, and there's some magic behind it. I won't get into it on this call, but it then projects that onto the meeting room software, the conference software, so that people who are calling in remotely will be able to see what's on there. So it's, again, it becomes full participants in the meeting. We have the microphones, both white for the ceiling mounts, or graphite if you want it for desk mount, or just prefer the white for the desk mount as well. You have a touch panel for the outside. I don't think my laser was, hang on, give me a second. Laser. You have the touch panel for the outside that shows what meetings are in the room, when it's scheduled to end, who's got it booked next, that type of thing. And then you have the controller itself. Again, that's for controlling both the meeting and some of the features of the cameras as well. I will point out, even though part of the focus here is about Microsoft Teams and Teams rooms, what the nice thing is, the software companies are working together, right? They're no fools. They know that even though you may be at Microsoft Teams shop, you are probably going to get invited to a Zoom meeting, and vice versa. If you're a Zoom shop, you're going to get invited to a Teams meeting or WebEx or whatever. So how do we make that simple? Well, all of these devices with that tap controller that's on the table in the room, I can walk into the room using what they call most of them call either direct guest join or one touch join. Literally hit a button, join the meeting as if it were a native, in this case, let's call it Teams. If it were a native Teams meeting, you would get that experience. Again, as if it were built in. It's seamless, right? So here's some considerations about a meeting, medium room. You might have more dry eraser boards or portable boards here. More desks, so you might need more mics. I think on here you have some mic extender pods on positioned on the table. Again, you can position them on the ceiling. Interestingly enough, all of these in these diagrams only have the one screen. I think if you're now getting up to the larger meeting room types, say rooms that are capable of 15 people or more, you may want to start considering multiple displays. So again, obviously Logitech doesn't do displays, but don't forget about all aspects of your meeting room configuration. I think that's okay here. Again, same thing, Rally Bar. Again, when you look at this, it's like, oh, it looks exactly the same size as the Mini. Well, it's not. This one's, I imagine, I've never seen one in person. I imagine it's bigger than 28 inches, right? So it's, again, you don't want to overbuy this for the smaller rooms. But again, same sound capabilities, etc. On this. What do I want to talk about? So these are the same meeting room components as we saw with the smaller rooms. You got your Rally Bar itself, you got the mics, you got the Scribe, you've got the tap scheduler, and you also got the tap controller on the desk. What I will say, because I mentioned I would talk about it and come back to it. So go back to this screen. The BYOD. So what does that mean? That means the person who's walking into the meeting, whether it's client, a vendor, partner, customer, whatever, they want to project. And so, what are you going to do? For whatever reason, they didn't connect to the meeting or whatever. And so you might want to say, well, I've got an HDMI out capability on my PC or a USB capability on my PC, because every PC is going to have, every laptop's going to have USB. I can take that, and if I added a Logitech switch, which is a cabling system, it allows you to accept USB A and C, and then you hit that, and basically the camera becomes part of the device. And Jay, I'm probably misexplaining this from a technicality perspective, but the idea is I can then use my own laptop as a client, as the visitor to the space, go through the rally bar, use the camera, project the sound, and then I believe that would then also extend to the display.
Yep.
So
you definitely nailed it there. So it also, from that standpoint, that pain point that you mentioned, right? I might have a Teams room that has a rally bar mini. It's great. I can walk in, join my Teams meeting. And if anyone outside forgets to invite that room, or outside of my organization, how can I still utilize that device that I purchased? And Andy just mentioned he installed his rally bar this morning, and it's 33 feet long, which is always correct to that distance. But you can put it in BYOD. We're not going to turn off those features. We're going to talk more about that. But again, it is certified to work in that Teams client outside of your organization. So anyone that walks in with their Mac or even their compute as BYOD can still utilize that device for their Teams client external to your organization. So
perfect. By the way, you'll notice you might have seen that I've got an orange mug and got a partial orange, because that's a tribute to Jay's favorite football team, the Denver Broncos.
No comment.
Jay, which is not. You'll see he's wearing a Seahawks top, but we'll ignore that. So accessories, there's what this slide is basically saying is, okay, great. You have all these devices. You have the pods, you have the controllers, the touch screens, you have the rally bar itself, the camera, right? How do you want to mount it? You want above the TV, below the TV, away from the TV, away meaning like just offset. You need to mount the mics in certain positions. There's various options for that. You have glass walls, no problem. There's mounts for the tap scheduler for mounting outside. Lots of different mounting options. Here's more about the way you can mount the rally bars on your displays. Nice clean look. Many different options. One of the things that's great about the Logitech products is that I'm trying to look around, seeing if I have one nearby that I can showcase. There's lots of different. They think about all these things about how to route the cables, route the cables, so that it's nice, clean look. What are we talking about here, Jay? Oh, just the fact that there's the two different options, right? One requires a compute device. So on the right-hand side here, PC solutions, you're going to have some kind of, probably a thin client. Yeah. Again, for those of you that are designing rooms right now, and Microsoft's starting to recommend this, start putting in higher capacity capability PCs. Definitely do not go with an i3. But even the i5s that were some of the prepackaged solutions that existed even a year ago, they're now starting to be i7s with more memory capabilities and so on. Why? Because we know that as the software becomes more capable and we add more and more features to it, it's going to require more computing power. And there's some really cool things coming down the pike. So that's why. There you go. Yeah, Andy, 33 inches long. I think that's it. So I'll hand it back to you, Jay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think this slide also speaks a lot, especially for a lot of our customers that are still in a different tenancy, right? You think about certain DoD customers that we do help out, build out their Teams room. That's still going to fall under that GCC high. And Microsoft is still going to be operating in that Teams room on Windows component, right? So at the end of the day, Microsoft is still going to be compliant to make sure that, hey, you can operate in this different type of tendency when it comes to a government entity, then our devices would still come in as a USB peripheral. Then we got on the other side of enterprise, customers or any customers that are open to just using our devices in appliance mode. So you would see certain feature parity pretty much almost come to one, as like what Sherman mentioned. Currently today, the biggest parity between the appliance and the Teams on Windows side is being able to do a Zoom meeting and a WebEx call. So this is, again, your standard meeting invite. Best practice is always going to have a resource account. You already have a resource account within your organization. It already has a free busy. Whatever your naming convention is, Toronto conference room, Seattle boardroom, you assign that resource account a Teams room license. Then your end users would invite that resource account to that meeting. And even with appliance mode today, Teams room on Android, you can also send a Zoom meeting and a WebEx meeting directly to that room. So for your end users, it's just easy as I got my Teams meeting from a day-to-day standpoint. I can join that meeting. I can also send that Zoom meeting and WebEx meeting and hit that one touch to join. And again, you're getting all the strengths that Microsoft is developing within their application. Obviously, there's certain things that they will release first on Teams Room on Windows. Certain features today, like a lot of our customers are utilizing our Rally Bar Mini, like front row, that's still going to be prominent on Teams Room on Windows. But as you notice, there's a lot of things that Microsoft is also working in the background to ensure that feature parity between a lot of customers that are using the Android operating system that runs natively in our devices are meeting those needs as well. So certain things are still going to have that look and feel. There's emojis nowadays, which people love to use, especially in the chat feature. If you do have an audio calling plan, that's also part of something that you would add on that resource account, part of your Teams Room license. And just to give you folks a quick snapshot of what Microsoft plans to do, I took this from one of our Microsoft guest speaker a few weeks back. So obviously you got your Zoom and WebEx, that direct guest join feature that's there today on Teams Room, on Android and on Windows. They do plan to add BlueJeans and GoToMeeting. So again, to Sherman's point, a lot of these companies know that you're not using just that room from a Teams room perspective, you're also using other clients as well. So they're actually pretty much having that collaboration or that one-to-one talk to say, hey, if you send a BlueJeans meeting or GoToMeeting, when this is released, I'm able to do that one-touch join or direct guest join for my tab controller inside that space. Outside of the room, we also got you covered, right? So we got the tab scheduler that does operate in that Teams room application. So Microsoft calls this as a Teams panel. And when it comes to that application standpoint, you're going to take their development's feature set. So a lot of things that Microsoft has recently released is if you have multiple tab schedulers, you're able to actually check out and extend this at needed be. So at a single pane of glass, being outside of the room, I can actually book the meeting if I, you don't need to like, oh, nobody's there. I'm going to squatter in. All of a sudden, Sherman walks in and is like, I booked this room for 10 to 11. What are you doing here? This is the tab scheduler that gives you that same look and feel as the tab controller inside, but it's really that booking mechanism, right? So it allows you to know if the room's available, if it's booked for a certain time. And again, there's a lot of things that Microsoft has talked about in Microsoft Ignite recently that they plan to extend those features when it comes to room booking. So think about that from that room perspective. From our side of the house, Logitech is trying to always solve for that pain point, right? What is happening inside that room? You don't need to worry about, like, to what Sherman was saying. Back in my day, I used to call a IP address, pound, whatever it is, to join my meeting. Now I'm 15 minutes late. Now it's easy. Now we're solving for that use case of, is the room booked? Is it available? I don't need to know and look inside if it's available or not. I have that panel that's there outside. Same goes with our auto tracking features, right? So from a in-room perspective, we always want to make sure that all of our cameras that you would see across our portfolio are still giving you that same look and feel from a group or what we call an auto framing perspective. So all of our cameras has the standard group framing. The Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini does take it a step further. So not only we're providing your standard group framing, we also have that speaker tracking. So that main camera is going to focus on the speaker that's actually speaking in that room and still give you a picture-in-picture of what's happening. So the great thing about both bars is that there's two cameras built into them. You have the main camera that's doing the pan tilt zoom, and that AI viewfinder that's giving you the picture-in-picture. So you're still knowing that, oh, Jay keeps talking, and someone's falling asleep because I can't stop talking, fortunately. So you're still gonna have that collaboration. And again, everyone is going back into the office. I just looked down the street and Costco over here has finished their headquarters. So if anyone's looking for more of that meeting equity, we've been working from home, for the past 2 years. We're also delivering this new feature called Grid View. So Grid View will actually put each individual in their own Hollywood square. So almost what we're doing here on the Teams client, right? Sherman is in his own Hollywood square. Deborah's in her own Hollywood square. We're also going to provide that with the Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini. So now you have multiple options to utilize our device. Do I want to turn this room into the standard group view? I have other end users that love the speaker tracking, and maybe I want to put another room into grid view to have that meeting equity that a lot of my end users are looking for. But what happens when we start talking inside the room and I tell Sherman, it's like, have you seen that new Mandalorian show? Or, there's a new coach for the Denver Broncos. What do you think about it? But at the end of the day, hey, we're getting some good conversation back and forth, a little banter about our teams. But as you notice, if I turn inside my conference room, you're not really getting that expression, right? We might be thinking like, oh my gosh, Jay's really, really mean, and he's really talking smack about Sherman's team. So we have a solution to solve that, and that's going to be introduced by Sherman here.
Oh, you caught me off guard. I think you had one more slide, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry. No worries.
Okay, got it back. There you go. That's the one more slide I was waiting for.
Yep.
So yeah.
Next slide. So
we're all familiar with that configuration, right? The camera in front of the room, and we are in on site in a meeting around the big table, and we're all kind of wanting to face the camera. So imagine if the front of the room is here, I've got the display, so I'm looking at the boring Excel spreadsheet that's on screen here, and you're looking at me right now, the side of my face, and Jay just did that as well, and my mic's here, so now the sound kind of also gets affected. So now I'm talking to the person in the room, right? And so again, the camera's here, so you're going to see the side of my face if you're remote. So how do we fix that? Well, there's multiple options. Let me advance the slide. There's multiple options and different ways that we can do it. We can add more cameras to the room, but where would we place them? And Logitech's done some research and done some configurations and tests and say, hey, what if we did it this way? What if we mount another camera behind the people at the table on the long ends? How would that work? And they've done some research, and there's some pros and cons to those approaches. And so let's take a quick look at this video, and you'll kind of get a sense of what we're talking about. Awesome. There was a lot of Logitech products in that video. Shocking. So what, it's kind of hard to see in that quick video because they didn't really have like overlay to say what was going on. You'll notice in some of the, hopefully you noticed in some of the clips, some sections of the clip, you saw the whole room. Great, that's the front of the room camera. And then sometimes you'll see there was a gentleman specifically, like he shifted this way, and then all of a sudden, instead of seeing the side in the square, it showed him straight on. So how did that happen? That happened because there's a product now that's coming in a few months called Logitech Sight, and that sits at the in the middle of the table. So it's not really shown here. Let me go. This is just kind of setting up. I don't really, yeah. So remote participants, in-room participants, how do we see that person that's in that dotted circle? I'm going to skip through some of these because, again, these are some of the approaches that Logitech looked at to say, how can we address this issue? Now that more people are coming back into the office, again, anywhere from, could be one person, but if you have more than one person and they're talking to each other in the room, and we've all been there pre-pandemic, pre-Zoom, pre-Teams, the remote participant wasn't really thought about. So it was all of us in the room, we're talking this way. And if we were lucky enough to have a camera in the room, the remote participant would kind of see everyone, as if they're looking at it from outside in, right? They weren't really first-class participants. I can't remember what the video called it. Anyway, whatever they called it, it was, again, same with Microsoft's philosophy of looking at meetings from a remote worker first perspective. So if I'm now talking to everyone in the room and the camera, well, I'll try again. So if I'm talking to everyone in the room and the front of the room camera is here, which was the one you're looking at right there, then you're seeing the side of my face. It's just not a very good experience. And again, my voice was directed that way. The mic's here. It's not picking up the sound as nicely. The grid view, yes, does some help. The speaker view and focus helps. So that's kind of what that's demonstrating here. Some of the things that Logitech was looking at, but how do we address, again, the side? So is this a video? No. With Sight, it's using a combination of sound. It's got 7 microphones built into the top of it. And it's got 2 4K cameras that are not quite 360. They're kind of biased towards, they're directional. So it's not meant to be 360, because we know that we're still going to be biased towards the front of the room because that's where the camera is and that's where the display is. So what these things are meant to do is to say, okay, I'm going to capture the faces around the room. That's all I need to do. I'm not focused. I don't need to be 360 because I don't expect anyone in the front of the room necessarily. The different camera will handle that. So how it does that is it knows who's speaking, and then it will also know the direction that they're speaking in. So if I'm speaking at the front of the room, because I'm like right now I'm looking directly at the front of the room camera, there's a microphone there, it's going to pick that up and it's going to show me this view. If I start to shift, and let's assume I had a Logitech Sight in my fancy boardroom here, the microphone there will know that the sound has shifted and the camera here will pick it up. So that working in combination with the conferencing software will then show my face from the camera from Logitech Sight on the table. To me, this is one of those things where I'm really excited about because, again, we've all been there. We've dialed in. How old are you? We've called into the meeting and we're the remote participant and we feel like we're not really part of the conversation because as they're talking to each other in the room, I'm not really seeing their faces anymore. I'm seeing the side. And so the Logitech Sight addresses that issue. Here's another thing. Again, I don't know if that demonstrated. I've got a really awesome Blue Yeti microphone, but it's positioned here. And so as soon as I turn away, I'm sure you notice that the sound is different. So that's no different from some of the meeting room bars. As good as they are, if you're not talking directly to them, the sound is going to be affected. The microphone's just not going to pick it up as sharply. So the Logitech Sight, again, has those microphones. It's going to pick up the audio and it shifts seamlessly from one to the other. You don't even notice it happening. I guess that's, I know I use that word a lot. Seamless is what we want. We don't want an experience that is jarring to anyone, whether you're in the room or remote. We talked about this. I talked about this where there's the cameras. Again, this is the field of view with the, I guess, kind of Pac-Man shape circle there. It's not really worrying about the front of the room, right? It's worrying about the participants that are seated around the table. And I think the next slide, you'll see one of the, there we go. So the people here started to shift. They turn their seat towards the center of the table because they're talking to each other now. And so now the Logitech Sight camera will pick that up and send that feed out to the conferencing software. So as we're designing meeting rooms, meeting spaces, and as you start to hear feedback from your staff to say, hey, here's kind of the experience. So and so in Kamloops, you know, they're obviously not in Vancouver, and so they always have to call in and they're feeling left out. How do we address that? Because they can't return to the office. They're a completely different city. We can address that with this device here, and you don't have to have it from day one. You can add it as your needs change, and it just supplements your existing systems should you find that there's that issue. Here's some mounting options. I won't get into that. There's lots of different ways to mount it cleanly so it looks like it's, you know, part of the room, part of the table. You can mute, you can cover the camera if you need privacy. Installation stuff, not gonna worry too much about that. Table mount, privacy, we talked about that. Security, so you can't just take off with it. It's mounted to the desk anyway, but obviously with that Kensington slot there, you're gonna have that extra security. It does need to be wired. And I think kind of all I want to talk about, right? Is there anything that I left out, Jay?
No, that's pretty much it. And knowing us, right, we try to include everything under the sun when it comes to the installation. If you want to mount it on a tripod, it'll be there. If you have a beautiful glass conference table, you definitely don't want to drill through that. There's going to be a table grommet for that site. And just the height of the site is only 11 inches. So it's no bigger than your traditional water bottle, right? We don't want something that's too big that's going to over encompass the whole conversation when I'm talking to my colleagues inside a conference room. So that is really great. I'm excited to get one. I know Sherman's definitely excited to showcase that once we get that. But definitely reach out to us, reach out to your CDW contact, and we'll keep you, up to date when that's available. But again, this is going to be complemented or an accessory to the existing Rally Bar Mini that you already have inside that room. And I know somebody asked the question, will it also accommodate 2 sites? At post-launch, we'll definitely accommodate that, especially for those longer conference rooms, right? So think about the one site that already has 7 beam microphone arrays that's built in. We'll be able to daisy chain another site to accommodate another leg of that conferencing table. So now, not only it's going to accommodate a conference room size that sits 10, you might be able to accommodate something that's 20 or even comfortably 25 on that seating arrangement. But how do you manage all these devices at the end of the day, right? So great thing when it comes to our devices management, sync is going to be always free from that management standpoint. So we do have what we call Logitech Sync, and this is complementary. Take note of that word, complementary, from your ecosystem partner, right? So if you're already managing your devices from Teams Admin Center, definitely, utilize that, but you're always gonna see a firmware discrepancy from that standpoint. So if there's certain things that we tend to hot fix from a firmware update, you're always going to notice that Microsoft might have something that is a -1 from what Logitech has released. By no means, there's nothing that you're going to lose any features, because from our standpoint as well, we're always working with Microsoft. If Microsoft says, by the way, we're going to release front row from Teams on Android or any feature, we're always going to vet their APK and always push that out from our devices and make sure nothing breaks from your, the Rally Bar and any of those devices that are running CollabOS. And from that, not only you're able to manage all your devices here, your video conferencing devices, we already have extended that capability to our B2B products. So our B2B business products, such as like the Logitech that is certified for Microsoft Teams, our favorite Brio that everyone loves because it's the only camera that still does Windows Hello, which is great. I can just walk in and like, hey, it logs me in from that infrared sensor. These are all manageable through Sync today. Today, it's firmware updates. Moving forward, there's going to be certain settings that, again, those are USB peripherals, right? So it's going to be talking to your Sync tenant, and Sherman goes, hey, I'm actually in, out of town right now, but I got my Brio and I forgot to load my Logitune software. Can you change my field of view from 90 degrees to 65? I can do that from Sync directly. So those are the things that we're going to be looking towards in the future, right? So again, Sync is complimentary. It is free to manage all these devices. I would encourage you folks to sign up and check that out. And if you want to have more of that peace of mind from a support standpoint, all of our products do come with a two-year warranty, and that uplift service to have that peace of mind for a 24/7 support, we do offer Logitech Select. So this is not only from a 24/7 service, but we offer more from that standpoint. We do have next day RMAs for a lot of our customers that needs to have that. By the way, I need to have this room available by 6 a.m. whichever time zone my CEO is going to be using that room. We're going to have that dedicated success manager as well for any rooms that are 50 and higher. And as well, they might have some on-site spares that's already there. So if you have, let's say, a Rally Plus kit that has a table hub, a display hub, and all those components, you might have certain spares that we will accommodate for having that Select program. But think about Select as an uplift service, right? From all of our devices, we kind of considered it almost as a free service. You got that two-year warranty, 8 to 5. Select kind of gives that uplift service from the 24/7 standpoint. So, and the great thing about Select, it can also be purchased anytime. So you don't need to worry about, oh my gosh, I just purchased my Rally bar and I'm looking at deploying 50 rooms or 200 rooms, whichever that is. This can be purchased anytime, even though you already have your devices at that duration. So. And with that, I will pass it back to Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherman. Thank you, Jay. So we do have a couple of questions that we were not able to answer in the chat, and I thought I would bring it to your attention, Jay, just to kind of double click on it. So Ryan was asking, he has his tap, but it's locked to Zoom, and how is the best way to unlock that?
So if his current tap controller is using Zoom, right? So within that ColabOS settings, you'll be able to go into the service provider and change that into Microsoft Teams. It will require you to have a Teams room license, right? So do be aware, Microsoft has changed their licensing structure as of September of 2022. Every tenant has free 25 Teams room basic licenses with limited features. Anything that you would have to, let's say you have a tap scheduler or you need to have dual displays, we have our Scribe that is a content camera that will require a Teams Room Pro license. So you do have those two different licensing structures that Microsoft do offer today.
Awesome. Another question from Maggie. She's asking what's the easiest way to manage a boardroom calendar between two tenant IDs. She's got two clients that share a boardroom.
So that's difficult, right? Because from a resource standpoint, two different tenants is going to be, unless you're a delegate to that at the end of the day, right? So whoever's the actual individual that's creating that account, you need to have delegate access. Aside from that, right, from a room standpoint, if you do have a tap scheduler, that's what you're going to use as a resource to deploy that device. Obviously, best practice from an IT admin standpoint, that resource account already has a free busy. So it's different from me and Sherman's calendar, right? You can book me, but I might already have a meeting from that. And that free busy helps that room from being double booked, and it does auto accept. So I would definitely reach out to whoever has the main admin rights to those accounts and give you delegate access to those.
Thank you. And I have a question from Sean regarding Sight and spatial audio. Can Sight support spatial audio?
Spatial audio meaning where the individuals are going to be situated. So Sight is actually going to be covering most of the individuals that are going to be, the pickup range is 2.5 meters, right? So it's really there to pick up the individual that's sitting in front of the conference table. So if, I turn to Sherman and says, oh yeah, hey, I told you to watch that Mandalorian show. it's gonna know that, by the way, Jay's talking to somebody inside the room, and I see the heads and eyes, and it will just, shift to that point of view rather than catching that side view. We do have some other things that is pretty much going to be upcoming when it comes to the audio acoustics that we're going to improve on. Definitely stay tuned on that. But Sight is really there to capture the conference room table experience where everyone's seated on that. So
fantastic. Thank you. I may open it up to anybody that has any other questions or comments.
And I just pasted those instructions on how to change your service provider within your device there. Yeah. I know somebody asked a question about Barcode ClickShare. So Barcode ClickShare is one of our greatest partners as well. You think about our devices, right? If you notice where that slide that Sherman talked about how our devices operate in appliance mode, USB mode, think about Barcode ClickShare using our device as a USB peripheral, right? You have that Barcode ClickShare box, whether that's a CX20, 30, 50. Our device would just come in as a USB peripheral, whether that's a Rally Plus, Rally Bar Mini. Then that Barcode ClickShare box is the operating system now that's using our device as a USB peripheral, right? So you do have those dongles that allows you to do that wireless BYOD, but you're still behooved to that box's capabilities, right? So there's certain things that you have to be aware if you do have Barcode ClickShare. It's a great device for wireless BYOD, but you're using our peripherals as a USB component. So.
And we've got one question that's just come in from Gary Gu. How does Rally Plus identify each in-person participant's voice in the room, in the same meeting room when doing transcribing?
So that the transcribing functionality is still going to be driven from a Teams client perspective, right? So if I'm talking right now, I might have the 2 default mic pods that comes bundled with the Rally Plus, or up to 7 that you can expand that to. So it's always going to pick up that individual that's going to be talking, and Microsoft's always doing the transcribing on their end with their algorithm at the end of the day. The Rally Plus system, again, all of our cameras do have your standard auto framing, right? So your Rally Plus, the Meetup, Rally Bar Mini will do your group framing. But if you want to have that more speaker tracking capabilities, that's only exclusive on the Rally Bar Mini. So.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments?
I think there's one from Norm from midway through, but the 2 displays I don't think I answered, and I wanted Jay to kind of chime in here as well. The two monitors, so the Rally Bar support up to 2 displays. And so the question is, the 2 monitors can be fully managed by the Rally Bar ? Are the screens managed by Teams or by Logitech software? And I would kind of say neither, because the screens are just screens, right?
Yes and no. So the hardware is there. We do support dual displays at the end of the day, whether that's 4K display, 8K, the hardware is capable of that. But from a software standpoint, Microsoft and our other ecosystem partners might give you different features, right? Your standard 2 displays output in video conferencing always been people, content, when somebody's sharing content. When content's gone, you usually get your far end view inside that room. Obviously, Microsoft has certain features that would be part of that dual display or dual, they call it dual screen support, where now if you don't have any content on your secondary screen, you can actually expand your gallery view. So rather than having your Hollywood squares on one screen, if content is not being shared, that's something you can expand. That's something that would be driven from a Teams application standpoint. But definitely good question on that. But we do support dual displays. Doesn't matter if it's a 1080p, 4K, 8K. The feature sets of how those displays are going to output are still going to be driven by the application. So.
Fantastic. And Alex is just asking, would there be any features that don't work with Tap, Scheduler, etc., if our email is still being hosted on-prem?
So great question, especially on-prem Exchange, right? Since Teams panel is mainly on the cloud today, we do have our own other providers that's built in natively on the tab scheduler that does support Exchange on-prem. These are other service providers like Medio and Robin that does support those on-prem capabilities. But again, each of those ecosystems will still require a room license, right? So from a software level, you got Logitech that's providing you the great hardware, whether that's the scheduler, the devices, and on top of that is all those applications like Microsoft Teams that runs natively and respectively has certain limitations on that. So if you're still an on-prem Exchange, you might have to go to a different service provider and acquire a license for that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, I love these questions. Really great.
Awesome. Great feedback. Great questions. Thank you, everyone. Well, if there aren't any questions, we are going to adjourn for the day, and I'll give you all back some extra time. I just want to call out one thing while we have you all. I mean, we've had a lot of great conversations with the folks over at CDW and some of you on the call as well. Jay's got a really cool lab set up at home. He's got all the really cool solutions from Scribe all the way to Rally Plus. So if you do have any questions or need some technical assistance and you want to get on a quick call with Jay to, have a bit of a discovery call or kind of do a bit of a virtual demo on some of these solutions, more than happy to schedule something with you folks. Just reach out to your CDW team. One other question from Steve. Are licenses perpetual or do we need to purchase annual?
So that would be, I would believe Microsoft has their licensing structure, and somebody can correct me on this. I know it's per room, per month, right? So that is something that you have to purchase. So I did put the licensing guidelines or the feature sets of what you would get from the free 25 room licenses from MTR Basic versus Pro. But do be aware, this has changed as of September 2022. So it used to be Teams Room Standard and Teams Room Premium, where Premium actually gave you a managed service from Microsoft. Microsoft has gone away from that licensing aspect. Now you just get Basic for free up to 25 rooms, and MTR Pro, this is MSRP here in North America, $40 per room per month. So
perfect. Is Teams Room Pro new?
Correct. So Teams Room license as of September 2022 last year.
Alex is correcting. Adding on to my previous question, would introducing hybrid exchange bridge the gap?
It would definitely would. So if you're doing that hybrid, right? So you're pretty much having that connectivity to Azure. That would be something that resource account would live there. Then you can definitely run that Teams panel natively. You would still require a Teams Pro license for Microsoft to operate that on the tab scheduler, and that would be something that you can utilize. So
fantastic. All right, last call. This has been very active. All right, so I think what we're going to do is adjourn for the day. Again, I want to thank everyone for attending today's session. Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you so much, Sherman, for bringing us up to speed with all good things on the Logitech and how Teams can help foster improvement in collaboration and productivity. And what do you got in your hand over there, Sherman? What are you holding up? Oh,
The Broncos helmet.
That's a message for Jay. Anyways, thanks. Anyways, folks, thanks so much for joining, and feel free to reach out to CDW rep. And looking forward to working with you and helping you create some solutions for your business needs. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
Take care.